All right, welcome back. Today, I want to talk about how I've acquired 14 self-storage facilities basically over the past 10 years. Now, storage, I didn't get started till 2019, started looking in 2018. So I want to take you back further, back to 2014, which is when the foundation was kind of being set for my real estate investing portfolio. And this isn't for me to share just for myself. Well, it's not for myself. It's to share because a lot of people feel like they have to raise money, have to borrow money from family members or syndicate in some fashion. You don't have to. There's definitely ways that you can do that. The way I've done it is different. I've done it with my own money, and obviously I've gotten bank loans, and I'll talk about that too. But I want to kind of put this all out there. I know I've talked about it, but I don't think I've really gone down the entire path of how I've done it, and kind of how it's looked and how we've kind of gotten to where we are, and then kind of going forward, what that may look like too. So we'll go back to 2014. I was working a 9-to-5 job in sales, and I think around that time started making okay money, but started looking into other ways to make money on the side. And actually thinking back, it's funny how many things I looked at. I mean, I was looking at keeping stats for NBA basketball teams remotely. Like I was going to do it at my house. I think I did one game. So I don't know what it was even for. No idea. I did that one time and realized, okay, I'm not going to do this every night, watching these games and collecting all these stats. But I remember, going through a period of time, like, how am I going to make some extra money on the side? And that mainly that's because our first kid, our daughter, was born in 2014. So I was looking to just supplement our income, get more money coming in. So that landed me to diving into real estate investing. And for me, my parents had technically two investment properties growing up. One was a duplex. One was a single family residence that at one point in time I actually lived in, but did see real estate investing from that aspect. So that I was initially drawn to that. So started looking for single family rentals in 2014. And it's amazing because you can always look back and say, man, I wish I would have bought everything that I saw. And that's one thing that you can take away with. I get the question all the time. Have I gotten the real estate investing at the wrong time? Did I miss the boat? I felt like I've missed the boat since I got in it. In 2014, I'm like, man, I really missed the boat because we had the crash of 2008, 2009, where these houses lost all the value. But what happened was, and even in 14, the values hadn't completely gone back to where they were prior to 2008. They appreciated a little bit, but they didn't get back to the values that they had 6 years prior to that. But what was going on was rents were not keeping up with appreciation either. So I'm seeing these low rents, even though, looking back, the houses were priced very cheaply. The rents were really low too. In fact, I would say majority of the houses that I looked at then, rents have probably doubled since then. In 10 years, they've probably doubled. And for comparison's sake, I was looking at houses for probably around, we'll just call it between $60,000 and $90,000 that I was looking to buy to rent out. Rents were between $600 and $800 a month. So kind of the 1% rule. Those houses now are without a doubt, easily doubled for rent, which is crazy. In 10 years, they've doubled in rent. And the values have probably doubled, if not maybe tripled with some. Anyways, back to how I started was one single family rental. Took one down. I think it was end of 2014. We may have closed really early 2015, something like that. We had a little bit of savings. When I say little bit, I want to say we probably had around $20,000 in savings. But we had a HELOC on our house, and it had appreciated because we bought our personal house in 2011. So over those 3 years, the house had appreciated a little bit. We obviously put some money as a down payment for that house. So we had a little bit of equity there that I could tap into for our first single family rental. So the 25% down that I needed, I think the house was don't quote me on numbers, but I think it was 80 grand. So I needed 20 grand, about 20 grand for the down payment, which I used our HELOC for that. And then I think I probably had about 10,000 in repairs. And the reason why that was so low is because I did all the work. So that 10,000 was all material. And I did all the work over the course of 3 or 4 months. So I don't want to say I did this a hard way, but grinded, used a HELOC. So used our equity from our house, our personal residence. And then I did all the work to save money. While it didn't cash flow that much, we'll call it maybe $250 a month, something like that. It was still a good investment because it did appreciate over time. And if I would have held on to it any longer, I probably, all that cash flow that I was making, we'll call it maybe $3,000 a year, would have went out the door. As soon as you got to replace the AC unit, replace windows, the house probably needed siding, needed a new roof. It needed a lot of things when I unloaded it. But that's where I started. So I started to acquire single family rentals starting in 2014 for the next 4 years. And I did a flip in there too. And throughout that time, I'm buying houses for between 60 and 80 grand. I think the most expensive one was 80 grand. But they all appreciated over the course of those years. Rents didn't really go up over the course of that time, but they definitely appreciated. And when they started growing like that, I saw that, okay, this is something that can get me out of my 9 to 5 and also set us up. I don't want to say retirement, but set us up going forward past work, our working careers. So started diving into trying to find other asset classes, multifamily, car washes, businesses. And I've talked about that before. But finally landed on self-storage, saw that I could get into a commercial asset with 10% down as a down payment to the bank, and it's an SBA loan. So basically it's monopoly, right? I had at the time, I did one flip. Well, I think I made, it wasn't much, 10 grand maybe on that flip. But I learned a ton, and I'll kind of back up a little bit. I learned a ton during those, doing the single family rentals and the flip. I learned an absolute ton. I learned how to run a business where I didn't have to be in it. I started hiring things out. So second, third, fourth rentals, I didn't do much work. I may have painted a little bit here and there, but I hired more things out. I learned how to manage, be a property manager. I learned how to get good tenants and then kind of create a business, a very small business, but create a business with those single family rentals. So that really helped. And I think got me ready to get in the storage, which is without a doubt a business. Obviously real estate as well. But yeah, started looking in 2018 at self-storage. And again, did the monopoly thing. If I had 4 houses. So if it's monopoly, you're looking at the 4 small green houses that you can get, and then you can replace that with 1 red hotel, right? That's kind of what I did. But the very first self-storage deal was, I think I was all in around $375,000, and that included improvements. So I needed to put cameras, a gate, and finish off the front end of the fence. So that was around, I don't remember, 25, 35 grand to do all that stuff. And I included that in my loan. So, and I don't remember the exact money I had to bring. It was around 65,000 maybe as a down payment. So 15% down. Sorry, that deal was 15% down. Around 65 grand of my own money. And I believe I was still using a HELOC at the time for that. And throughout those single family rentals, we did save some cash. I started making a little bit more money at my sales job. So each year, we were stashing cash away and then investing into these investment properties. So that kind of helped us scale a little bit. So it was without a doubt the HELOC. And then I was able to also start just cashing or stacking cash to the side too. So I've been using those 2 vehicles a lot. And I'll continue with that, throughout the story here. But 2019 took down first 2 deals. So I did a second self-storage deal end of 2019. And that was also an SBA loan, 15% down. Now, at this point in time, I do remember things being pretty tight as far as savings. we had basically gone through all of our savings, and we had basically used all of our HELOC. Now, I'm somewhat conservative. We probably had a little bit of runway, but not a ton. So I was thinking, okay, how am I going to get my next deal? And this was end of 2019, early 2020. And decided, you know what, these single family rentals, as much as I like them, and it was hard. This was a very hard decision for me. And looking back, it's kind of crazy, but it was a really hard decision for me to let go of the single family rentals. But I did. So I ended up selling those 4 single family rentals. They had 3 of them definitely doubled in value. One of them probably a little bit more than that. And then one of them went up 5-10 grand in value. So not much, but there was still my down payment that I was getting back through there. So that set me up for my third deal, and then some, I think, if I remember correctly. And that deal I did, my third deal, early 2020, I did seller financing with 10% down. That was a bigger deal, but I had cash at this point. And I started selling off single family rentals slowly. I don't remember. I think at this time I'd only sold 1 or 2 off. But it was enough to get that down payment for that third deal. And then once I saw that working, it happened really quickly. Sold off the other single family rentals, used the cash for my next, I think up to my 5th deal. I think I was 5 deals in, that HELOC, savings, and then money that I sold from rentals were down payments for those first 5 storage facilities. And at that point in time, now cash flow was good and was better than what I was making at my 9 to 5. And technically I could have stopped and just said, you know what, I'm retired. And that was basically 2020. Could have done that. Did quit my job, but could have just stopped. Didn't want to stop. I don't think that's really a recipe for success, but didn't stop. And I knew I wanted to keep growing. So I think it was end of 21, did a refi, cash out refi. So if you don't know what a cash out refi is, it's basically the BRRRR strategy. That's more single family and multifamily. It's buy. So you buy a property, you rehab it, which is the first R in BRRRR. You rehab it, you rent it out, and then you refinance it. So you get a new loan on it and then repeat. So you keep doing that over and over. That's basically what I did with self-storage, first 5 facilities. The value went up because I went in there, raised rents, made operations better. So the values went up, and COVID without a doubt helped. I'm not going to sit here and pretend it was all me. It was probably 10% me, 90% the economic situation that we had because of COVID. But values went up, and I was able to take out a large piece of cash. And we did 2 things there. We bought our house with cash through that refi, and then we bought our next 2 deals with some of the extra cash from that cash out refi. So that was able to do 2 things. One, our house is paid off, a new house that we moved into in 21 paid off. And then we were also able to get in 2 more cash flowing deals so that we're still using that money, right? So when you take money out, cash out refi, you're probably paying a higher interest rate, which is what I was doing from my original loans. But your monthly payments are going up because you're borrowing that money, right? Use a round number, take out $1 million. Now you have a new loan that's $1 million more than what you were paying for, right? So my money, and ballpark where interest rates are today, that'd be about $7 grand a month extra monthly payment that I had to make for that $1 million that I took out. So I had to put that money to work that I took out for the cash out refi. So I bought 2 storage facilities from off that, and then our house. Now, the reason I did that with our house, and looking back, I could have gotten a loan and would probably be at under 3%, which I could have done. And looking back, maybe would have been smart. But instead, I got a HELOC on our current house, and we're using that. We still use that today. So not only did we buy 2 storage facilities from cash out refi, bought our house in cash, but now I'm also using a HELOC, so the equity in our house, to continue to buy properties, pay that down, and then keep going. And we continue to do that. So that kind of gets us to end of 21. I think we had 7 or 8 storage facilities at the time. and somewhat tapped on cash other than the cash flow that's coming in. So now it's the game again, right? Have to save up, or do I have to do another cash out refi? So ended up finding a few more deals because obviously I've gotten to 14 now, but some of that is from savings, just from the cash flow. Some of it is because I did another cash out refi on one of the facilities that I'd already done a cash out refi. So I'm really milking this one facility. I took out a decent amount of money, and I was able to do technically 4 deals, around that, just because of this one facility, which is kind of crazy. So I was able to cash out refi that one and do kind of 4 deals with that one facility, combined with some others. But yeah, that's how I got 2 more deals. And I'm in here, and I didn't go through all the loans, but I've done SBA. I've done conventional, which is, and I'll back up. I've done SBA 15% down. I've done SBA 10% down. I've done SBA where it was closer to 3 or 5% down. And that was because it was an expansion. It's considered an expansion. I already had facilities in that town. So I went to the bank and said, okay, I'm looking to expand these by buying 2 more facilities in the same town. And the SBA, Small Business Association, sees that as an expansion. So I expanded my business, and technically I could have gotten away with 0 money on my pocket, but the appraisal came back bad and ended up bringing, we'll call it 5%. I think it was closer to 5% as a down payment. So I was able to get in that deal skinny. And that deal since then is probably, I don't know, maybe not doubled in value, but close to it. And this is all, that was what, 2023, I think, when I took those 2 deals down. Did another seller finance deal in there, 10% down for that. So a lot of my deals I've been doing less than 25% down. In fact, have to go through it really quick, but I think there's only been 1 or 2, at least 2. We'll call it 2 or 3 deals that I've done that were 25% down. Everything else has either been 10 or 50% down or 5% down with the SBA. Or I've seller financed for 10% down. That's kind of been my go-to with seller financing is 10% down. And that's been able to allow me to scale. So I'm still using my HELOC. I'm still using cash out refis. Now it's gotten a little bit different now, just because I'm in some really great loan products in, I don't know, 3/4 of my properties and really low interest rates. Like we're talking 3.8%. So it's tougher for me to do a cash out refi on those, just because of where, those interest rates are, the terms on those loans. It's tough for me to do that. Now, if there's a great deal that comes along, will I do it? Without a doubt. I'll have to pay a penalty because I think at best I'm only 4 years into some of those loans. And I think I got to get to 5 years before I really get out of the prepayment penalties. So yeah, that's how I've scaled 14 self-storage facilities in 6 years using my money in some fashion. Now I will add an asterisk here. Excuse me. I did borrow $60,000 from my dad, and that was a year loan. And when I did my first cash out refi, I was able to pay him back and then some. It was just bad timing when I had some other deals going on, so I needed to borrow $60,000 from him. But otherwise, yeah, that was considered a personal loan. I didn't raise the money or anything. Otherwise, everything I've done is basically creative finance, right? Even if I didn't have the 25% down, I tried to go to SBA route with less money down, or I tried to do seller financing where I can control the terms and bring less money out of pocket. And the key thing is, if you're doing that, because banks want you to bring 25% down for a reason, especially single families, because the markets do go up and down, right? The values go up and down. And if the values ever go down, you want to have that cushion there to where you're not underwater, right? So even with, the deal that I brought 5% down, I need to make sure that in a year, 2, 5, 10 years on up, that the facility is appreciating and I'm not underwater, even though I only put 5% of my own money into it. So that's where I think that's where a lot of I don't say a lot. That's where some syndicators get in trouble, because when they're syndicating, they're getting, we'll just use easy numbers. They're using 75% as a bank loan, and 25% they're borrowing from other people. So it's 100% financed. Okay. They need to make sure there's true value add there, and they've got that, within a year, 2, 3 years, hopefully, to where then they can go refinance that and pay off the investors. And now some of you may be thinking, you know what, I've done that with some deals with my HELOC. While that's true, I'm still paying a less rate. I'm paying somewhere between 6 and 8%. It was lower, but we'll call it 5 and 8% on my HELOC, which is lower, probably close to half, if you're going to get investor money. So while I am some deals up front, I was 100% financed. Also, within probably 3 months, maybe 6, the values increased significantly. And for the most part, I was hoping it would happen, but for the most part, I was predicting that would happen. Stuck to the plan. Those were able to appreciate, and then was able to get cash out refi if I wanted to or needed to. So that's kind of brings us to where I am right now. It's I will say, using your own money, even with a HELOC, but still using, oh, you know what? I missed one piece. Sorry, missed one piece. If you're still hanging on here, I've got one more piece. In 2020, so COVID was going on. It may have been 2021. I cashed out myself and my wife's IRAs, our 401ks. And we were able, because we were in COVID, we did pay taxes on it, but I had enough depreciation where it didn't matter. But there were no penalties. So during COVID, you could pull your money out of your 401k for an emergency. And that was during a time where it was considered an emergency. So we were able to pull out, it was 6 figures, so a little bit more than that. We were able to pull that out penalty free. We did have to pay taxes on it, but penalty free, and then put it into self-storage facility or facilities that, that we'll call it 100 grand, has easily, I don't even know, probably 10x in value. So looking back, I know I was definitely nervous about doing it, but I already had proof of concept. I think of 2 facilities at the time, 2 or 3, that were going up in value and creating good cash flow. So that's where I knew, cashing out for our 401ks was going to work out short-term and long-term. Sorry, forgot to add that. But where I'm at right now is same boat. Monthly cash flow is good. We're still using our HELOC, and I'm trying to pay that down quickly, but doing this process is slower. So it makes you a little bit more creative in financing. Maybe I can get some seller financing deals, which I am working on one right now. I have been using the SBA, still use it. A lot of people, for whatever reason, shy away from it. I don't know if it's the paperwork or what, but from what I've found, their paperwork's no worse than if you've got a CMBS loan, or I've got some life insurance loans, which we've kind of dove into in the past. So I've got some, I guess, more sophisticated loans. Paperwork's the same as an SBA loan, so I'm not afraid of that. And if I can bring less money as a down payment and make my capital spread it out longer and make it work harder in more deals, then I'm going to do that. And still, during this time too, there's probably a timeline on how liquid I need to be, and that changes. So I need to be more liquid now than ever, just because we've got 14 self-storage facilities. 13 of those have gates. And knock on wood, I'm knocking on every single piece of wood I can find right now, because we've had a ton of gate issues this year. I mean, that 1 month, I think we had probably half our gates that were down. I mean, 6, 7 gates were down in 1 month. So I need to be more liquid now, just for things like that, for rainy days. But yeah, going forward, I am still trying to be creative with financing, seller financing. I've been working on a deal where I'll probably bring 10% down But we were initially looking at 0% down. I was looking at bringing zero of my money to get this guy's price. And he was going to finance basically my down payment. Now, again, you've got to be careful because I got to make sure it can appreciate when I take it over. But yeah, it's allowed me, I can't go as fast as if I syndicated, but it's forced me to be more creative and probably has forced myself, I can't speak for others, but has forced myself to be smarter with my money. And really, I pay down my HELOC, and continue to stack cash when I can to buy more properties. Now with that said, I do have other properties that I could, and I'm working on a small one, do a cash out refi, bring a little bit of money out of that deal and then put into the next deal. And that's really where you gain momentum. And you see this done a lot with, especially syndicators, but they're not recycling their own money. I'm recycling my own money. And it's just compounding over time. We'll say I started with the first house, was 30 grand with repairs. So basically that 30 grand, it's crazy to see how much that's compounded. It's not even the number that I can come up with. So 30 grand is compounded in about 10 years, a crazy amount. And that's just how powerful real estate can be. So that's about all I've got. That's kind of the gist of how I've done it with all of my money and obviously bank's money and seller financing too, but I've not raised any money. I've done it with my own money and that's how I've done it. And it's taken a little bit longer than maybe some others, but I also keep 100% of the deals that I don't think a lot of people talk about. When you're syndicating, raising money, you're not keeping 100% of the deals. More than likely, you're giving away equity in those deals too. And this is not a bash fest on syndicating. It's just how I've done it, how it's worked for me, how I'll continue to do it. I'm still doing the same thing. It's just numbers, right? At first they started small. That 30 grand with that first single family house, I was making, we'll call it $300 a month. Not great returns, but some type of return. But over the course of 5 years until I sold it, it went from being what I have in it around 80K. I sold it for, I think, 160. So it doubled in the course of 5 years. Now that doesn't always happen because the 5 years prior, it was basically the same price, same value. But if you hang on to it long enough, yeah, it's gonna appreciate over time. And that 30K eventually turned into 80K for me, right? Just from selling it, plus the cash flow that I had. And then it's compounded since because I've used that 80K into self-storage deals. That's probably at least 10x into another deal or more. So again, that's how I've done it. That's all I've got. Feel like I'm rambling at this point. Appreciate everyone listening. If you want to come on the show, reach out to me. Would love to have more guests. And even if you're a repeat guest, let me know. Would love to update some people's stories and see where they're at. And if you find these episodes valuable, feel free to let me know. I love the feedback. And feel free to share. That's great too. As this podcast is growing, I'm hoping that it's becoming more and more valuable. That's all I've got. Have a great day. See you guys next time.
Thanks for following, subscribing, and listening to this episode of the Do More podcast hosted by John Farling. To learn more or ask questions, go to l4investing.com.